Back to your daily dose. My name is Robert. I'm here with Will, a.k.a. Brother Will, and I'm Brother Bob to him. You laid the table out for so many things. I wanted to highlight one thing you mentioned from Awakenings. Dr. Oliver Sacks
Oliver
is
Sacks.
the guy that was, based on. Awakenings is a film that I will do a cinema therapy class at some point, right? I mean, I do these classes based on individual films, and then we break them down via the hero's journey, right? So it's 12 stages, and then we have a week of reflection every fourth week to go back and look at what the students have written. And Awakenings is, I just wanted to kind of stop on that for a second. It's a very important film in the Parkinson's world because they're talking about the use of carbidopa levodopa, which is the drug, right? And yes, it shows something, and yet at the same time, as the movie Heartbreaking shows, it's no miracle, right? It's incredible what happens, but it's a band-aid at best, and it's just it's so important, I think, to remember that process of things working and then finding limits, and then you go back again and then you find limits. I mean, that's exploration. That's not just science. To me, that's living, and I think it's a really important lesson.
I agree. I'm fascinated with what I see you doing with these different avenues that's not just medicinal, but it's you're still dealing with the brain and so many of the diseases we have that are just associated with that. Um, but yeah, I'm totally fascinated with your work in movement and the cinema therapy and music and discussions. Uh, uh, to me, I think that area is vastly unexplored, and so it's great to see people like you, um, you know, kicking these discussions off, and hopefully that it'll create an impetus for more research, more people studying this avenue rather than strictly medicinal.
Yeah, and because you're directly in the world of academia, and I just had a great conversation with my best friend from my PhD program. His name's Dustin. He's out at UNLV. We talk about the institutionalization of academia. And, sometimes people get so excited within their tower or lane that they don't make what they're working on applicable or usable by the general public. I mean, you shouldn't have to have a PhD to play with the things we play with, right? I mean, I know that you talked earlier, I think offline, about getting your students to think differently about music, right? Instead of they come in with, oh, I'm going to work in a music studio. And you're like, wait a minute, there's so much more you could do with that. Talk to me about that process and how you open students up to see music maybe differently.
I think I don't know if it's just nature of students, and I'm sure I was like this as a young student, but trying to get rid of the tunnel vision. Obviously, one of the to me one of the goals of education in general is to get students to synthesize their own ideas. And so, but it's I me personally, I try not to do a ton of spoon feeding, and I don't want them to regurgitate things back to me that I've said. I always try, even on exams, I try to include some type of application question, meaning if you're in this situation or this environment, what are you going to do? And I want to know how they think. And of course, I mean, assessment in academia is constant, but when you start adding all those things, the tunnel vision kind of transfers to the researcher as well, and they always have to keep open what they're doing. Um, you know, saying, "Hey, I need to be widening my lens, so to speak," and just keep thinking outside the box. And that for me, that's a personal goal, but I also try to make my students think that way as well. I use that term all the time. They're probably sick of me hearing going, get outside of the box, get outside of the box.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the institutionalization of education leads most students, in my experience, to stay inside the box because it's scary not to get the grade you want, to matriculate to the next thing, as if education were a series of boxes to be checked. And you're telling them, get out of those boxes, right? Which I fully agree with. And yet it takes real hand holding to develop that trust in your classroom to say, I care about you. I'm not just looking at you as something to either do as I say or be, dealt with in perhaps painful ways, whatever that means. Because I think it's scary as a student. They show up that first day and they're like, "What do I need to do to get an A?" Just right. Yeah.
Yeah. You
All
know,
right. Go
it's
ahead.
you say that. I always have this discussion at the beginning of the semester, and it's trying the point is to be motivational, to kickstart that outside of the box thinking. But I'm like, some of you are here just for the grade. Some of you are here and you're actually gonna go, you're gonna be self-motivated and you're gonna do things, and it'll eventually pay off really well. And I said, I hope you're the second one. I hope you're not here just for a grade. Um, but yeah, it's a really tough hill to climb in academia. I always say my biggest, and I don't even want to call it an issue, but one of my challenges is just motivating students to be proactive in their learning.
Yeah, we're going to touch on more of that in a minute. We're over time right now, but to come back, I'll just give you the button on that to say the one thing I always say is I can't teach you how to care. And yeah, so there it is. All right, we're coming back. We'll see you on the next dose.